We've talked about this 100 times, that, this is a way safer time than there's ever been in human history.
Yeah.
But when you look at people like trying to pass laws to take away rights, you would think that there's rioting in the streets and that the world is falling apart.
Right.
So what is that connection? Like, why is it that with this time where really, like, things have never been better for the human race, why is there still this overwhelming need to crack down further and further on rights and liberties and control the population more and more North Korea style? Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a trite thing to say, but it's you follow the money. And so I think that if you look and see that, 48% of people in the prisons are it's drug-related offenses. If you see, like, the people who are making money off of these laws, I mean, God knows how much money the fucking TSA makes selling their crazy gear that they have. That's a big fucking business, So I think it's just some people tend to profit off of the mass perception that we are existing in a sort of hell dimension. And there's people who figured out a way to suckle at those black satanic teats and extract money from it that they use for their own sense gratification, their own selfishness.
And it's a tiny amount of people, really.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, if you look at the greater number of human beings in this country, 300 million people, how many of them are sucking the blood out of the earth? Is it even 1,000? Is it even 1,000 industrialists and bankers that are responsible for wielding that kind of power? And how many of them are Masons, Duncan Trussell?
They're all Masons, brother Joe. But here's the thing, man. I think that the stuff that we kind of hit upon when we have these conversations, I think that kind of stuff is, if people's eyes start turning in the direction of the idea, as absurd and quixotic as it might sound, that you can, through a combination of discipline and visualization, create a positivity singularity in your life where your very being and everything around you can, like, almost like being in an elevator going up a few floors into paradise. That can happen, where suddenly you discard, like a snake shedding its skin, all the foulness of your of the fear calcifications that have formed around your life in the form of bad relationships, shitty friends, a negative outlook. You can, like, drop all that and suddenly experience some version of rebirth. This is why the Christian idea of being born again is a beautiful notion. That's a crazy idea to play around with. The idea that you can renew and rejuvenate your life completely if you just let go of fear and turn your fucking eyes away from the ghost story that these hell buzzards are spoon feeding us so that they can sell droids and fucking Fords. And if you start turning away from that and putting your focus on this idea, you're not always going to be perfect. I mean, you're not going to be suddenly in the Garden of Eden.
The people who need to change their idea are the people that are actually doing that, not the people that are, like, buying into it. It's way more important to have the people that are in control change their idea. So how the fuck do you get to the lizards?
Well, to get to the fucking lizards, man, I think that what would have to happen would be a exponential shift in the consciousness and the predilections of the majority of people on Earth, so that people start playing around with some of this fucking awesome information that's floating out there and see if you can make yourself happy.
So that's where there's a possibility of technology aiding in the evolution, because if there comes a technology that allows data to be distributed, probably wireless, probably point-to-point inside something that's installed in a person's body, like some sort of a chip that's installed in your body.
Yeah.
And there'll be some sort of a wireless data network that's like an internet for human beings communicating with each other. And you're going to be able to access the ones and zeros that make up your own fucking personality, too. And people are going to have Yelp scores. Like, you're going to meet someone, you'll see, like, 2 stars over their head. You're like, oh, look at this asshole.
What a dick.
Yeah, they're going to be just like, it's just going to be like rating restaurants on Yelp. You'll meet someone, and as you look at them, it'll cursor over them, and you'll see stars. And you can't resist that. You're going to have to go through with that.
Yes.
And when that does happen, then all the people in government are going to be like, fuck, I have 0 stars? Like, I'm a cunt.
Yeah.
And they're going to be forced to recognize that. All the people around them are going to be forced to look at them. And when the soldiers look at the generals and all these shitheads that are running the army, and they see 0 stars over their head, and they realize how fucked up they are as human beings.
Remember, Joe, it's the like is currencies. Remember Facebook likes a long time ago we talked about?
Likes currencies?
Remember when we said that likes and Facebooks was going to be a currency in the future?
Yeah, it could very well be. But I think it'll definitely be a way to like look at a person and get a read on who they are before you ever start. I mean, a person is directly, I mean, who you are is directly related to how other people feel about you when you're around. You know, that is a big part of who you are as a human, is how you interact with the rest of the species. Well, if there was like a rating system, like a Yelp for people like that you just saw when you met someone, people would try so much fucking harder to be nicer. You know, they would try so much harder to fit in, and they would feel the repercussions of having that 0 stars over their head.
Man, when people are cunts, if you really consider why people are cunts, my theory on it is that they don't understand how important they are. They think they're not important. Usually when someone's being a cunt...
It's easy to be a cunt.
But it's because you're not... This is something...
It's easy to lash out.
When Hancock came on my podcast, he talked about ayahuasca and slurping ayahuasca, and how one of the effects was that it made you experience the way you made people throughout your life feel. You know, like they talk about the life review when you go into the light and that shit. It's like... They say that I've talked to people who've like died and come back, and they say it's not that you like watch a video of your life, it's that you literally see the way that you made the people around you feel. You feel that. You feel the way you made the people around you feel. And I think that most people who are dicks, they don't think they're important enough to induce any kind of feeling in the people around them. They don't even think that they're important enough to make someone feel like shit necessarily.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's what's going on at all. I think they're just unhappy, and they lash out. I think that's what being a dick is. It's a projection thing. They are trying to hurt people's feelings, for sure. When someone's being an asshole, they want to have a reaction just to let them know that they're important. I don't think that it's not that they don't feel like they're important. I think their ego's out of control, which is just the opposite of not feeling that they're important. Their importance is more important than anything else in the world. That's why they're willing to lash out at people.
You know, man, I don't want to think that way. Because I like...
But it's an ego issue.
I like to... Here's what I like to think. Speaking of like the node of the multiverse I want to exist in, I want to exist in this node of the multiverse where underneath all the ego calcifications and all the shitty lashing out thing is just a super sweet person that happens to have been just walked out of some briny swamp that consists of their family, their job, their life, their past, whatever it is, and they're still dripping with some of the oozing stagnation of being born in a bad incarnation, and the way that that's manifesting is the form of their shitty activities. But underneath that fucking thing, like a mask, is just a person who like had to run through a stinky swamp and needs to shower off.
Well, how are they mutually exclusive? Because that's exactly what I'm saying. The person who lashes out, they're angry. You know, the person who lashes out, they're trying to hurt people's feelings. It's not that they don't think they're worthwhile. It's that their ego is protecting them from their environment because they've grown up in a hostile place.
Well, okay. I'll make it obvious concession. 100%. Of 100% of people, certainly there is some percentage that probably has some, like, thinks they're fucking important. And God knows you run into people who are puffed up.
All day you do.
Yeah, but quite often, man, I think that puffed up thing underneath it, they don't really think they're fucking... I'm saying some people definitely think they're important, but they don't really believe they're important.
Yeah.
They don't really think they're worth something. They don't really think that they're part of a web of life that has value. They just feel like they're fucking worthless shitbags, and so they put on a show.
See, I think that what's going on primarily with people is that when you see people that are acting illogically and you see people that are like angry with road rage, there's not a lot of consideration going on at all. And I think most of what they're operating on is momentum. So they're not really even thinking about whether they're worthwhile or not worthwhile. They're about ego, they're about reacting, they're about anger and frustration, and they're about selfishness. And when you live a life, especially when you have a job that just sucks the fucking blood out of your body, literally sucks the inspiration out of your soul, you want to be selfish when you're done. I think that's a big part of road rage, a big part of people yelling. You don't even want to give someone a few seconds to get in front of you with the car. You want to honk your horn and give them the finger because they made you wait a second or two. I mean,
well, you're having
an ego issue.
It's a seizure. You're having these kind of seizures, and the way they're coming out is in you being a dick.
Yeah.
But it's like a muscle spasms. But it's all a fucking result of this kind of like, unfortunate whatever the fucking thing that your past has happened in your past. You're programming it.
Yeah.
So it's like this. I just love this fucking idea that. This is called unconditional positive regard. Have you ever heard this term before? Unconditional positive regard. So it's this idea that if you can manifest around people a state of unconditional positive regard, it doesn't matter how they're acting,
okay,
without judging them. Just the sense, a lot of us came into this fucking dimension and are freaking the fuck out. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are rightfully freaking the fuck out. Some of us maybe we're freaking out when we shouldn't be, but if someone's freaking out, they're freaking the fuck out.
Okay.
So the way to handle that is to manifest something called unconditional positive regard. This is a psychological theory. And so there was I can't remember the therapist's name, but they would take kids who were about to go to juvie or whatever from schools, and they would bring these kids to meet with him because he's a therapist. And these kids have been meeting with therapists their whole lives because they're fuck ups. And so their experience has always been one of being in offices where someone's trying to change them, turn them into something different, make them feel bad for the way they are, hammer some kind of ethical system into their brain, whatever. So this guy started doing this thing where he'd let the kids come into his office and he'd just sit there with them. There's crayons, shit they can draw on. They would do their crazy shit, their little act outs and freak outs. But the whole time he was just trying to be a person with them who wasn't judging them, who wasn't looking down on them and thinking of them as monsters. And so the effect of this shit that he did, I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a whole goddamn type of therapy, but the end result is these kids, their grades started improving. They started to become better people because they were in the presence of someone who was actively trying to appreciate them as human beings.
That with this time where really things have never been better for the human race, why is there still this overwhelming need to crack down further and further on rights and liberties and control the population more and more North Korea style? Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think that their crazy gear that they have, that's a big fucking business, So I think it's just some people tend to profit off of the mass perception that we are existing in a sort of hell dimension. And there's people who figured out a way to suckle at those black satanic teats and extract.
We've talked about this 100 times, that, this is a way safer time than there's ever been in human history.
Yeah.
But when you look at people trying to pass laws to take away rights, you would think that there's rioting in the streets and that the world is falling apart.
Right.
So what is that connection? Why is
extract money from it that they use for their own sense gratification, their own selfishness?
And it's a tiny amount of people, really.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, if you look at the greater number of human beings in this country, 300 million people, how many of them are sucking the blood out of the earth? Is it even 1,000? Is it even 1,000 industrialists and bankers that are responsible for?
It's a trite thing to say, but it's you follow the money. And so I think that if you look and see that, 48% of people in the prisons are it's drug-related offenses. If you see the people who are making money off of these laws, I mean, God knows how much money the fucking TSA makes selling